What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa. And tonight, guys, we have a very, very interesting episode for you guys. A lot of stuff to talk about. It's actually kind of all surrounding one subject. I hinted at this actually in my last episode with quarterback Zevi Ekos and my co-host Tyler Stringfellow. I was telling you guys I wanted to talk about this whole Brian Flores thing, but I wanted it to be just more than a quick little, 10 to 15 minute segment. I wanted to basically dedicate almost an entire episode to talking about just the craziness that has been going on in, across the NFL regarding Flores and all the teams involved over the past couple days. So I'm really glad to discuss all that tonight. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. And with that being said, I wanted to get a guy on who is very passionate about one of those teams that is now being named in this lawsuit by Flores. Obviously, you've seen him on this show before. He's a great person to have on to discuss this. He is a Miami Dolphins fan, kind of a local bum. But without any further ado, please welcome back to the show, good friend Sean Howe. Sean, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm handling myself pretty well. I'm glad to have you back on. Obviously, we're back at school now, kind of doing our thing there. How have you been handling yourself?
Not too bad. Starting to adjust back to the semester and getting used to the workload. Football starting to pick back up, but other than that, just getting used to everything.
Yeah, I know you were telling me before the show that you were dealing with like some COVID protocol kind of, BS that you were going through. That's tough, man. That is tough.
NCAA. I mean, they're just looking out for us, but it takes away from reps that I could have gotten.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely tough. But listen, Sean, I as soon as this news with Flores broke, and listen, it kind of broke like this news with Flores broke on kind of like the craziest day probably in sports. And it was the day that Tom Brady officially, certified his retirement. And not only did that, but completely left the Patriots out of his initial statement. So the media world was already in a frenzy about that. And everyone's just going, what does this mean? What does this mean? Like, is he dissing Belichick? Is he dissing the New England fans? And all of a sudden, like just kind of on the back burner, Brian Flores just kind of, puts his glass down and just says, oh yeah, well, here's my kind of bombshell. And, people really weren't able to react to it until pretty much yesterday, to where, the whole Brady thing started to settle. People eventually were understanding it a little bit more. And now everything is on this Flores thing. And you especially, man, I want to talk with you about the Dolphins. I want to talk with you about the Broncos and the Giants and even the league in general. So obviously, if you guys have been living under a rock, Brian Flores was the former coach of Sean's favorite team, the Miami Dolphins. He was recently fired this offseason due to, I believe it was either friction with the team or just wasn't willing to comply with some certain things. And, they were basically saying they wanted to change direction with the franchise. And Sean, I know when that news originally came out, you weren't totally against the move. Could you reiterate your point before everything broke?
So I wasn't against the move because as a team, Miami's history is we're quick. We get 2-3 years, we got to go. Then we're in a drought for 5-6 years. When we get 2-3 years, then we're in a drought again. And I think and now with the speculation of a tank, and it kind of proves me right, but at the same time, I don't want that to be true, is that Miami was planning to tank, get that pick, make a run, go. And Brian Flores wasn't, not saying that the tank is the right thing to do, but speculation of that Brian Flores was trying to build a franchise. He learned from Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick builds teams. And Miami said, no, we want to make a run. And obviously, I was thinking about it today earlier a little bit. There's a different connection between players and a coach in the front office. And I think that's something we saw a little bit of, especially when the players reacted, obviously, and with Brian Flores being fired. Now again, I wasn't totally against it. I was trying to see it from both sides, but now even with this coming out, now it just kind of solidifies my thought, but at the same time makes me not want my thought to be true.
Yeah, I mean, with them, trying to do this quick thing and do this tank, allegedly, what's being, taken out by Flores. I mean, he came out and he said that Stephen Ross, the Dolphins owner, basically came to him. I think it was during his first year there, the 2019 season, and basically said to him, this is what Flores alleges. Obviously nothing, we can't say anything just due to the legal matter of it, but Flores alleges that Flores alleges that Stephen Ross, the Dolphins owner, or at least primary owner, went and basically said to him, I will pay you $100,000 for every single loss that we have this year. And was essentially trying to say that he believed he wanted to keep the team young. He wanted to improve draft position. And he said to Flores, oh, maybe take a vacation, don't take this thing so seriously. And Flores was very opposed to this. He ended up saying, that is not what I'm about. I'm about winning and winning only. I got to admire that. So for yourself, I know the Dolphins are kind of on the smaller market in terms of spending usually. So, and you can understand the idea of, trying to rebuild, but when it comes to the serious allegation of throwing games, which is kind of what Brian Flores is throwing out there, he's basically saying that Stephen Ross told him to, not try as hard and to basically purposely lose games. A lot to the 1900s Black Sox scandal when that came out, when they purposely threw the World Series. As a fan of a team, how do you feel that you could be, that possibly witnessed a football team that you're a fan of throw a season?
The thing is like you say, watch the team throw a season, but I was just saying, I think there's a different connection between players and a coach in the front office.
Yes.
And I was just looking through some of the games towards the end of the year, like that last game between the Patriots and the Dolphins, and the Dolphins came out on top, and they fought that game. So clearly, even if it's, alleged what the front office wanted, it wasn't what the players or the coaches wanted. And there was that agreement between the two that we're going to play and we're going to play to win, whether the front office likes that or not.
So I understand that, Sean, but just from the idea that could have been an idea that your ownership and front office was embracing as a fan of a team, what's your reaction to that?
No, I mean, if it's frustrating, it's annoying. I mean, nobody wants that. Obviously, I mean, I want my team to win. I'm not here to watch my team tank, blow a season, blah blah blah. But the reason I was getting to the other point is because it's also to see that my players are still willing to fight and my coach are still willing to fight, and that they're not just going to bow down to the front office, means that there's still character to the team. So that's not all hope's lost. That's what the point I was going to get to is it makes me go, really? What are we doing? But at the same time, it's to see the players do what they did. I mean, obviously they still won games.
Yeah, they
couldn't have listened. They couldn't have listened too well if this is true. So, for them to go out and still win games, I can't. I'm mad at the front office. But if the players are going to stand up and they're going to go out and win games, and the coaches are going to do what they have to do, I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones who put up the scoreboard.
No, exactly. And I think that Flores was fighting for this team to, be in a position to win. I don't think Flores, from what I can tell, took any of this money from the way he's making it sound. If he had taken money and then, thought it was a bad idea, I don't think he'd be mentioning this right now. So I think, there's a chance that he potentially left, $1.1 million on the table because they went 5-11 that year. They lost 11 games. So I don't know. There's a lot of things going on with that, but I was listening to ESPN this morning, and I was hearing Stephen A talk, and he ended up saying something that I kind of have to agree with, and it was that if these allegations of Stephen Ross, trying to throw games are true, he should not be allowed as an owner in the National Football League. I 100% agree. You can't. There's one thing about betting on your own team. There's another thing when it comes to purposely throwing the game. Pete Rose obviously is kept out of the Hall of Fame because obviously the big thing is that he was told is that basically he was gambling on baseball, and a lot of people think that he bet on his own team. Pete Rose obviously said that he never bet on his team to lose, and he went kind of on that kind of a diatribe. But people ended up saying, well, if you're betting on your team to win one day and not the other, that kind of sends a message as well. So, but when you're purposely going out there trying to lose games, and obviously you're a billionaire owner, you have a ton of money, and you're doing something like this, I understand the idea of trying to rebuild. I understand the idea of even tanking and not putting the best product out there, maybe sitting some starters on certain days. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but I understand it's a reality. When you're talking about possibly literally throwing a football game, not tanking, which is, you don't have the tools in place. You trade veterans off to, acquire a better draft position. That's a different thing from throwing a game. Throwing a game is literally, obviously playing to lose. That is your goal. Tanking is very different from that. So when I see something like that, again, if this proves to be true, which in this whole Flores thing, I think this is probably the most damning part of everything. If this is true, then, Stephen Ross needs to be gone.
I 100% agree. The game of football is just like any other professional sport. You're trying to win. The goal is to win the championship, whether it's the World Series in baseball, the Super Bowl in football, the World Cup in soccer. The goal is to win. Winning is everything. That's why you have fans. Fans root for you to win. So as a fan, how can I root for a guy who's at the helm and decides that he wants to literally give the coach money to lose games? That's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I agree he should be gone if it's true. But there is that little comfort zone that I keep referencing right now, that at least the players there now are trying to win and that they're there to win, and they were never on board with any of these allegations. And that's an important thing, because it just shows that the character of the team itself is got a winning mentality. Granted, we've had a couple, winning seasons, but haven't made the playoffs. But it shows that the team's there to win, and that if with the right management, we might be on the.
Sean, I have no animus towards the players of the team. From what I can tell from Flores, it looks like they were trying to win. Obviously, 2019 was kind of a lost season just to, obviously Minkah Fitzpatrick gets sent out of town. A lot of things just weren't there 2019. It just wasn't a good, it wasn't a good football team in general on, regardless of the idea that they could have possibly even been throwing games. I don't think they were throwing games. I just think that was a bad football team. And unfortunately, Brian Flores inherited that bad football team during his first year in Miami. Once he had control, he had back-to-back winning seasons as the coach of the Miami Dolphins. Like, he was able to make moves down there. And even when Tua was getting injured, even when he was rolling with, certain guys, he was still able to make pretty good moves as the head coach of that team. And it obviously shocked me when everything went wrong. Another big part of the story, though, which involves Stephen Ross, which you were texting me about this, was that, following the 2019 season, there was Stephen Ross basically talks to Flores, and during the league, before the league tampering period is allowed, basically he ends up saying that, Ross goes to Flores and basically says, hey, I want you to reach out to this quarterback, that doesn't name the guy at first, and basically says, hey, we want you to reach out to this guy. We think that he'd be a really good shot to improve our team. We like what he could bring to the table. Why don't you reach out to him? And Flores is like, I come from New England. I know my way around a controversy, and getting caught in the league tampering period probably isn't the best idea. If you know what I'm saying. I mean, listen, the Pats have had their fair share of draft picks taken. So if you're the Dolphins and you're trying to build something up, the last thing that you need is to have draft compensation taken away from you. So he refuses, and then Stephen Ross basically says, he's like, okay, fine, you want to do that? And I guess like a couple weeks or so go by, according to Flores, and Ross invites this dude onto his boat, and he says, oh yeah, we're gonna have like a little lunch on my yacht. As soon as Flores gets there, it turns into basically a secret meeting where Ross ends up saying, oh yeah, this quarterback in question is going to show up. And you ended up saying to me, reports are basically claiming that, the only mystery quarterback that would have been of high notoriety during that tampering period of that 2019 offseason is Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady. Unless Brian Flores was really up in arms about getting Phillip Rivers or Andy Dalton on his roster, you got to guess it was TB12.
I would think it was TB12, but at the same time, it's like, as a Dolphins fan, I don't see that move ever happening. Like, Tom Brady wanted to come to Miami, but for an owner to do this, it's just, again, it's a hard pill to swallow. Like, all this happened in the same year. The whole throwing games. Now we're on to the off season. He's trying to, in the tampering period, trying to break the rules again. Like, it just makes you wonder, how many other rules has this man, allegedly, of course, broken?
Yeah,
that we don't know about.
At the same time, though, the backroom dealings and things like this tampering stuff happens all the time. I mean, just like for an NBA comparison, I think I remember Kevin Durant talking to Kyrie when he was still in the Celtics, and I think there was like a thing where they said, people thought that they said, oh, we should like team up or something, and there might have been like some hot mic or something like that, and that broke the tampering period and different things like that. Obviously, this stuff happens, and if this is true, it wouldn't be the first time that you would hear of something like this, but I don't know, just the fact that, again, like you said, this is happening within one season. And I don't know, in your mind, how would Tom Brady have really worked out on the Dolphins? They obviously didn't have Jalen Waddle at the time. And I think if they had gotten Tom Brady last year and during the 2020 season, of course, and then, they probably would have had better playoff odds. And I don't think they would have been in the draft position to take Waddle. So I don't know. How do you think that they would have, how do you think these 2 years would have looked with Tom Brady as the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins?
To be honest, I don't think it would. I don't think it would have worked out much better. I mean, Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay and had weapons. He had an offense. What did Miami really have?
Like Gesicki.
like you said, we wouldn't have gotten Waddle. I mean, past that, yeah, sure, we got Devontae Parker, we've got Gesicki, but I don't think Tom Brady, as old as he was, would have said that's a smart move. Young O line. I mean, Tua was constantly getting hit. So I think from his perspective, Tom Brady wouldn't have been interested. And I would have wanted that because, yeah, we would have had short term success, but no long term success. And I'd hope to see somewhat of a long term thing out of Miami for the first time in my 21 years here.
But
So,
honestly, it wouldn't have surprised me though, because you talk about Miami being kind of the short term thing. So if Miami had just said, "All right, we're going to go for it with this 43-year-old," hopefully it kind of works out. That wouldn't be the most shocking thing to me if Miami was to have done that and then just say, "All right, we're going to blow it up and just be at the bottom of the AFC East," which it is what it is. That's kind of what Miami sometimes does. They'll try to make a move to really assert themselves. Maybe they even get up to second in the division one year. Now not really with Buffalo taking off, but maybe about 5-6 years ago, that was kind of the reality of it. But I don't know. Nowadays, I'm just like, I don't know what the Dolphins are going to do. It does make me wonder. The only thing that would have made sense for Brady to go there is Brian Flores and just the connection with him. I think that obviously a lot of guys in the Belichick coaching tree just really haven't worked out as head coaches. Obviously, Josh McDaniels just got hired again with the Las Vegas Raiders, but his first stint with Denver went poorly. Matt Patricia was a dumpster fire in Detroit, and Bill O'Brien, obviously there are chances that he could be coming back to the New England Patriots, but there are some conflicting reports with Alabama. He was a train wreck with the Texans. So no guy really of the Patriots coaching tree has really been able to work out better than Brian Flores. I know a lot of people will look at Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel wasn't a part of the coaching tree. He has his own style, and it works out good. I don't consider him part of the Belichick coaching tree. Brian Flores is probably the most successful person out of the Belichick coaching tree. Was able to have back-to-back winning seasons with a Dolphins team that I don't think had nearly enough talent to produce something like that. They were able to get good wins over the New England Patriots, where especially this year, they got that end of the season win, ended the season on a high note for themselves, and I was just like, all right, Flores is it's going to be something you're going to be building slowly, but if they decide to keep Tua or go for something, that's the guy I want at the helm. And the fact that he's not there anymore is obviously the big thing, but I don't know. I think Tom Brady would have been interesting.
I think so too, and I wonder if it would have turned out similar to the Tampa Bay situation where they brought him in, and then a bunch of the guys around the league were willing to come in on these 1-year minimum contracts too. Like, sure, those thoughts go through my head, but right now I'm just in the predicament thought of like, where do we go now? Where is Miami heading? Because now our owner's allegedly throwing news. Our head coach is suing us. Well, our former head coach is suing us. We have no head coach. Where do we go next? What are we going to do?
Yeah, it makes me wonder because, I mean, if Brady ends up going to if Brady ends up going to the Dolphins, you guys don't draft Tua, you have a number 3 draft pick at that point, and it's like, or number 2 draft pick rather, and you have the chance to possibly move up and make a really good selection there. I have to go back and see what receivers could have been on the board at that point, but you would have had a shot to really make a good deal, or even trade that pick and get some really good compensation in between. If Brady had gone to the Dolphins and had to compete with Josh Allen, the Bills, I think one of the years the Bills could have bested them just because of how much they're taking off and how much Josh Allen is really looking like he could be the number 1, best young QB in the league. I know a lot of people will look at Mahomes, but Josh Allen really, again, in these playoffs, put himself on the map. So I think Josh Allen could have bested him one year, but I think the furthest Brady might have been able to get out of this would have maybe been the AFC Championship. I think that's the furthest he might have been able to get just because of how advanced it was. I don't think he would have been able to win a Super Bowl with the Dolphins team that, obviously we saw in 2019 going into 2020. I don't think he would have been able to win with that. Maybe this year in his swan song year, there's a chance that he could have gotten enough right pieces around him. But again, you wouldn't have had Waddle. You wouldn't have had certain guys like that. So there's still a lot of questions to ask.
No, exactly. I agree. And that's why it's like, I don't think even with the team Miami had, he would have made that move just because he knew his time was short. Yeah. And that's why he started doing 1-year contracts, right? Like every year in Tampa Bay. Was it 1 year?
He signed a 2-year, $50 million contract. And then he actually signed, I think he's technically signed with Tampa Bay. There was like some opt-outs, but he could have been with Tampa Bay for the next 4 years. He had a contract lined up with them. Nothing was guaranteed. I think he did have 1 year after this where he was going to make $20 million. They didn't end up doing that deal. So I think he has until tomorrow to see to retire and make it official, because if not, Tampa would have had to pay him the $20 million. Now they don't, so they can actually spend that elsewhere. So that is interesting.
Well, that's the only thing is he made a move to Tampa hoping he would get one final, hurrah. And
Yeah.
he wouldn't have gotten that in Miami. No shot. I love my team to death, but no shot.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, listen, the Dolphins, they have a young core and they could be really promising, but I just don't think it would have been the right time. The Buccaneers literally had all the pieces in place. They just needed a quarterback to take them over the hump. And then once you get Brady in there, everyone's going to go want to play with him, especially knowing that this was probably it. So once they knew that, it was like, all right, like let's get all these guys in there. I know I was talking with you about the team throwing games. I know I got on Brady for a second, but there was some other news breaking today around the league and around certain coaches regarding this. RG3 obviously isn't playing anymore. He's kind of more in the announcer role now at this day and age. But he came out and said, yeah, when I was with the Cleveland Browns, Hugh Jackson was obviously the coach there. And Hugh Jackson, I mean, when I saw him as the coach of the Cleveland Browns, it was an ugly scene there. I mean, I think they went 0-16 one year. It was just a bad run ship. And, obviously there's more things that go in place than just the coach there, but, obviously was kind of an ugly scene. RG3 ended up saying that Hugh Jackson was put in a similar situation that from what I was seeing, he could have been offered somewhere close to $50,000. So if there is a possible, cheating scandal like this going around the league, and I find it amazing that the NFL spent basically their entire budget and then some, investigating a couple deflated footballs. But then when it comes to teams, actually throwing away games and basically tarnishing the reputation of the game of football, especially with, how much we're throwing gambling apps and certain things at the game now, if the fact that they were able to brush that off so lightly, it kind of rubs me the wrong way.
I mean, here's the thing that I, always wonder is without any evidence, how can you prove, you can prove a ball's deflated. I can pick up a ball, shove a pump in it, check the PSI and go, okay, this is not, what it's supposed to be. And I can scientifically calculate, okay, even with the weather, it should have been this, it should have been that, blah, blah, blah. How can I prove with no evidence that somebody offered somebody money to throw games?
Well, I can tell you how. At least try to do it. You do what you did in Deflategate, and get these guys cell phones. I know Tom Brady and Bill Belichick kind of threw theirs out of a 10-story apartment building, but listen, I think Stephen Ross is going to be a little more careful with his, unlike Bill Belichick, texting this thing to Flores. I'll get on that in just a second, but obviously I would raid these guys' phones. I'd try to see if there are any text messages incriminating these guys. Because listen, like, in terms of people betting money and doing things like that, you're possibly swindling people out of millions and millions of dollars if this is found to be true. Now, I don't know anyone just hammering the Dolphins in their betting polls, but just Vegas in general and different things like that, it's detrimental. So I think you do need to actually really look at this, because this could be huge.
No, I mean, I agree. It could be huge. If it was one of those conversations that happened behind a closed door, there's nothing really to go off of. I mean, again, the footballs, they knew, they checked the PSI before they went out at halftime, because it's just standard protocol. So they had all the numbers. They were able to crack all the numbers for Deflategate, give you the
ideal gas lodge. Still will stand by it to this day. It's science.
Yes, correct. It was science. I'm a Dolphins fan, admit it. That was science. But they had the numbers and the science to give you an exact ABC, XYZ.
Yeah.
It all checks out. Here, the situation is if they raid their phones, there's nothing there. Which, if you're dumb enough to offer somebody $100,000 to throw games, I hope you're not dumb enough to do it for your personal self.
Exactly. No, I mean, it's real. It would be really dumb if you ended up having those messages still on your phone. But like we just saw with Coach Bill Belichick, greatest coach of all time, can definitely still make a blunder, and has definitely shows his age with, obviously breaking this whole thing up with Brian Flores. Obviously, the way this whole thing started was Bill Belichick sent a faulty text. And after Flores was fired, he went around doing kind of interview circuits. I guess even with him still suing the league, I guess there's still interest from the Houston Texans in hiring him. So frankly, I like what Brian Flores brings to the table. I think that the Texans definitely need some order in the court. And I think that Flores could definitely bring that. But, obviously this all started when Flores, was going to be interviewing for the Giants head coaching job. I believe it was last Thursday or before, the Thursday before Brian Daboll was named as the head coach of the Giants. And basically Bill Belichick ends up texting Brian Flores and says, "Hey man, congrats on the job." And he's like, "What, did you hear something I didn't?" Because Brian Flores knows Bill Belichick has, the inside scoop on things. He, again, while he may show his age, he has plenty of connections and can definitely tell something like that. So he ends up, Brian Flores is like, oh, do you know something I don't? And, Bill Belichick's like, what do you mean? Like the Giants, like you're going to be the coach of the Giants. And he's like, man, I sure hope so, coach. And he ends up going, oh yeah, they're going to be naming you. And Brian Flores is like, coach, I haven't even interviewed yet. Are you talking about me or Brian Dable? And literally Bill just says, oh shoot, I effed this up. Sorry, BB. And I think he said, oh my bad, they're naming Dable. And I love the text exchange where Brian Flores just goes, thanks, Bill. Like just classic. Thanks, Bill. All right, yeah, appreciate it. It's like okay, Grandpa. Like we get it. Like we know you butt dialed me.
Well, I saw the text messages, and yeah, he's like, Coach, Joe, you're texting, like, are you texting Brian Flores or are you texting Brian Dable? And he's like, oh, oops.
I mean, have you ever gotten like that text from like an old aunt or something or even a phone call where you're just like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, no, I don't want to answer it. I don't want to pick it up. Nope.
No.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh my God. And like they just like it's just like a text message that definitely doesn't make enough sense. Or, you have like the older relative that gets like their Facebook hacked and it's just like, I don't think I want to buy insurance for my aunt today. I'm all good. Like, I don't know. So I just saw that and I was like, you know what? Bill Belichick, greatest coach of all time, but he is human and he definitely shows his age there. So I don't know, maybe Tom Brady's pissed at him because I saw this on Twitter. Maybe Tom Brady's pissed at Belichick because instead of texting Adam Sandler about Brady's retirement, he accidentally texted Adam Schefter. So I don't know. There's always a chance of something like that. But I don't know, man. This started the whole thing off, and basically Brian Flores knew kind of going into his interview with the Giants that it was kind of a farce. And I was telling you before, you wanted some explanation on what Flores rather is kind of all up in arms about. And it's that when he went on his interview with the Giants, and now with it kind of looking like a farce, it's kind of it's pretty much a violation of the Rooney Rule. And for what you don't know what the Rooney Rule is, basically back in 2002, 2003, some prominent black head coaches were fired. And basically there was a rule put in place. It's named after Steelers owner Dan Rooney. And it basically mandates that NFL teams, when they have a vacancy, unless they have an assistant in their ranks that has a contract thing that says if there's an opening, they'll be elevated to head coach. Unless there's something like that, they are required and mandated to interview. I think it's a certain minimum of black or minority head coaches for the position to basically just try to get more people involved in the game and move people up in higher positions of power within football. And Flores, and like that, this is something that's been throughout football for the past 20 or so years now, just looking at it. And basically the Giants ended up, interviewing Dable, and they were basically going around saying, all right, our decision is set. Let's just interview this Flores guy to check the box to say, oh, did we abide by the Rooney Rule? Yep, we abided by the Rooney Rule. All right, all good. And unfortunately, hiring things like this do come out, and people are like, okay, we need to like just take a look at everybody, and people have favorites. But the fact that, this is it. It kind of just proves everything, where I look at this thing with Brian Flores, and it's just kind of the ugly truth of it, where I'm just like, I see the NFL, and they obviously have been, for the past 2 years or so, they've been hammering people with, their diversity campaign. They've been going at people at like this, but really behind closed doors, they're kind of the ones that are, the main culprits of a lot of this stuff. They kind of like to go after, everyday Americans and try to go after people and say, oh, you guys are the bad guys. You guys are the ones that need to change. When in reality, it's kind of these, big name guys within the league that, kind of are the biggest contributors to this issue.
The question that I have to raise is like, because the Rooney Rule, I didn't even know it existed until you told me about it before we even started the show. But, the thing is, how do we know Brian Dable wasn't the best candidate for the position?
Yeah.
Like my argument is yes, in 2003, that rule makes sense with the predicament that society was in. But nowadays, why can't we just interview the best of the best? Pick who's the best and roll with it. Like the Giants, why should the Giants be required to interview Brian Flores if they think Brian Dable is going to be their answer? I understand why the Rooney Rule existed, but in this situation, I have to almost say I want to side with the Giants, because at that point they were interviewing who they thought was best for the job, and we're just trying to check a box, but that box shouldn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Well, here's the thing though. Here's the thing. And I do agree with you that you should hire the best person for the job, regardless of, race, creed, whoever you love. I don't care about any of that stuff when it comes to hiring the best person for a job. 100% agree with you. The thing that's just very shady about it is that they were going around telling sources, or at least informing Bill Belichick of this stuff before, before even Flores was able to do his interview. So if, obviously in the world where if the Rooney Rule didn't exist, they probably would just say to Flores, hey, we're going to name this guy and go with it. What the shady part about it is obviously that they were going around saying to people, oh yeah, we're hiring this guy. And, just interviewing Flores was basically just checking a box. That's kind of the really shady thing about the whole thing. If you wanted to go out and you thought Brian Daboll was the best guy, God bless you. I mean, honestly, from what I've heard from Buffalo and obviously from his time in New England, Brian Daboll's a great head coach. I think he's going to do good things with the New York Giants. He seems like a very nice guy. He seems to be handling the New York media very well. So obviously, God bless him in New York. But when you're going around telling sources and you're telling people, basically just boasting to Bill Belichick and saying, oh yeah, we got our guy. What are you doing? I mean, you're incriminating yourself in the most blatant way possible. And the fact that you thought it was going to stay private in this way it's ridiculous. So that's the part for me. Again, if the Giants interviewed Flores and Daboll and thought he was the best guy, they could say, all right, we're going to go with Brian Daboll. But when you're still bringing a guy in, and I understand why they're bringing him in, it's unfortunately to check this box pretty much. But when the Giants are allegedly bringing him in to do this, and Flores kind of knows that this is happening, that's the thing that's really crappy about this whole situation. It's really disgusting.
Oh, I 100% agree that it's not fair to Flores, because Flores sitting there thinking he's got a fair shot.
Well, no, that's the thing. Flores went in not knowing he didn't have a fair shot because Belichick texted him before his interview.
At that point, yeah. But I'm saying before the text, he thought he had a fair shot at this, this job. But my point is that, they were only doing it to check a box. But clearly, Brian Daboll was the answer. So what I'm saying is, why did the Giants even have to interview Brian Flores? If they never from the beginning thought Brian Flores was the answer to their problem, why did he have to be? That's why, I'm asking, why does the Rooney Rule have to exist in the situation we're in now?
Yeah, well, I mean, regardless of the Rooney Rule existing, you still did promise this guy an interview. He still was planning to fly out and see you. So regardless of the Rooney Rule existing, you're still promising this guy, hey, we're going to give you a fair shot. So if the Giants the Giants could have easily, tried to make a pitch to Brian Flores and say try to say something, but the problem is, again, even if you were to try to check a box and you had to get this guy out here, you could have still said to Brian Flores, hey, this doesn't look like it's going to be like we like this other guy. What could you bring to the table? And I know it's unfortunate, but when you have a guy that you're basically already, you're already booking to bring him out here, that's kind of where it kind of goes wrong.
No, yeah, that's the part I agree with. I agree that it's crappy what the Giants did. I agree that at that point they should have to give Flores a fair. When you tell a guy you're going to get an interview, the only fair thing to do is to give him an interview
and do it open-mindedly too.
Correct. I'm just talking about overall with this whole rule in general. Why does it even exist?
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's fair what they did. No, if Flores is offered an interview, Flores is offered an interview. He should have a chance, just like Daboll had a chance. What I'm saying is, if they didn't want Flores to begin with, they shouldn't have to offer Flores an interview from the beginning. But because of this rule, they have to check that box, and then it causes situations like this where they're not even interested. They admitted they weren't interested when they, were out and about saying Daboll was the answer before Flores even had a chance. So, is it dumb of them for what they did? Yes. Is it 100%. Wrong of them for what they did? Yes. But the reason that anyone's even in this predicament is for a rule that will cause, the Rooney Rule will cause, I feel, more situations like this than necessarily fix.
Well, ironically, it has. Since the Rooney Rule has been put in place, there are actually less black head coaches in the league today than when it was put in place, which is the craziest thing, because it was supposed to literally do the opposite of that, but instead it has, been. I believe the only active black head coach still in the league right now, obviously there are guys that have the potential to get hired, but I think the only one left right now is Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's just like you made this rule, but now NFL teams look at these coaches and go, okay, I can use him to check a box. I can use him to check a box. You know how many teams have probably used these guys to check boxes?
Yeah.
I think the first time.
I think I think Marvin Lewis, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to watch the video, but Marvin Lewis was on ESPN, and I think he was on First Take, and he said that he was, from what I could see from the title, he was put in a very similar, I guess he said he thought he was in a very similar situation with the Carolina Panthers. Now, I don't know if he found out about something, but I forget who they ended up going with, but it was in like the early 2000s, I think back in 2002. Harris was going for an interview. Obviously, he ended up going to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think he coached there for 13, 15 years possibly. So he was able to get a long coaching career elsewhere, but he was talking about this. So there are many, poor implications to where this can obviously turn up.
No, and that's why I understand why the Rooney Rule was created, especially in the time it was created. But now it's just causing more issues than it solved because, again, this is just one that's come to light because Bill Belichick, old grandpa over there, doesn't know how to work his phone properly.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I'm sure this happens all the time where teams are out there, they're going for a coach, and they got to go, okay, we got to bring these two in just so we can check a box, but we already know we're going with either him or him. Just let the teams pick who's best, especially now as teams are going to get younger management as these older guys, hopefully, eventually start to sell off the teams and realize they're too old to do what they're doing. As the younger people come into management, this whole racial justice thing won't be an issue. And as they've already said, it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, the league's been huge right now in ending racial issues and justice for everyone. So I think if the owners have that same mindset that they're putting out to the fans, then the Rooney Rule shouldn't have to exist because they should just be interviewing everyone based off of their portfolio, not off of their skin color.
I mean, I agree with you, Sean. I do agree with you. But I mean, again, too, let me just say, when it comes to, obviously, I like to talk about the sports, topics on this show. So obviously on the very more complex social issues of this side, let me just say it's above my pay grade. And what I mean when I say it's above my pay grade is I don't get paid at all to do this show. So obviously, talk to any, when it comes to people on that, talk to more people with probably more expertise than myself. So I'm not claiming that I know more, that I know anything more than anyone else. But, that's my 2 cents on the whole issue with the Giants. You mentioned teams being put up for sale, though, which I found to be interesting. One team that actually did just get put up for sale, and is also involved in this Brian Flores controversy, is the Denver Broncos. So they're kind of there are a couple other teams that are sprinkled throughout this whole deal with Flores, but the Denver Broncos were the last big team to be named. And, obviously, like, this whole thing with Flores is so huge. The fact that, 3 separate teams are getting dragged for this is crazy. So this all with the Broncos situation is also getting looked at. Obviously everyone that's being accused of stuff has come out and said this isn't true. There's reasons for certain things, but Flores basically alleges that before he ended up getting the Dolphins job, he interviewed with the Denver Broncos to see about them for a possible position. And apparently when he went out to the interview, John Elway, and I think they've named the representative, but I just don't have it on me on the time. But another Denver representative went with them to sit down with Flores and see, to see if he was interested. And first of all, they were late to the meeting. I think according to Flores, they showed up like an hour late. When they showed up, apparently Elway looked extremely disheveled and, just looked extremely just out of it. And according to Flores, he looked like he had been drinking heavily the night before. So obviously that's a big, and then also too, it seemed like they had little to no interest in him, which from someone drinking heavily the night before, that usually gives that type of an implication. So, Elway's come out since, and he ended up saying him looking like that was due to a delayed flight. So there were certain things there, but I don't know, that was pretty damning too. I mean, what do you think about that? Going to an interview and the guy that's doing the thing shows up, looking like crap.
I mean, for me, first off, I mean, it's just, if I was in an interview and the person showed up and they looked like they were just drunk or like, hungover, or just weren't put together, didn't care, showed up an hour late, it would look like they're not interested. And as Brian Flores is trying to get a head coaching job, why interview the guy if you're just going to show up and not be interested? Like, I feel like this is one situation where I feel for Brian Flores. This is just not.
I feel for Brian Flores with the whole situation. I think it's a bunch of BS. If, again, obviously legally speaking, you have to go under the assumption that nothing is certain, but basically just have to go. But yeah, I feel like Flores obviously has gotten screwed.
I mean, the question that I ask in this is this another Rooney? Like, is this a similar situation where they were just interviewing to check a box? Because that's how it seems. It seems like they just showed up just to show up.
That's what I wonder. But at this point, I don't, I'm not advocating for people trying to check boxes with the Rooney Rule, but if they were to do this, what's going to stop them from just hiring, from just interviewing like some random guy in their office? Why does it need to lead them bringing in an outside guy to do this? That may be a part of the Rooney Rule where you do have to actually interview outside guys, but I don't know. It's just, it just really, it just really reflects poorly on Elway and those guys. So I don't know. Again, everything needs to get settled out. They'll probably do that in the courts. So I can't speak on that. But the other big thing about Flores is that this is a class action lawsuit. So there are other guys that are that might join on to this. Hugh Jackson might be one of those guys. I really don't know. But from what I've heard, there are other coaches and players that, whether it be, the similar hiring practices or whether it be potentially throwing games, apparently, according to Flores' lawyers, people have reached out claiming that both have been, both situations have happened to other people. So it could be a very interesting situation in the NFL. If things really start to kind of boil over, I'm going to be interested to see how the NFL handles this. Are they going to actually try to own up to their mistakes, or are they going to do what the NFL typically does and basically just, blame other people and then also kind of just try to push this thing under the rug like they did with, obviously Ray Rice and what they did with Greg Hardy, and how they were able to just get all these and basically how they were able to just throw these controversies by the wayside. I feel like just knowing the NFL and knowing the league that it's in, I have my ideas.
I mean, I definitely think that the NFL has to do something about it. I mean, Brian Flores has brought up 3 stories. One with the Dolphins, which is not, it's its own problem. But 2 of the stories seem to be very similar. Guy goes out for a head coaching job, and they're either not interested or they've already made a decision before he's already shown up. How many other coaches have been put in this situation? Probably way more than we think. I've been put in a predicament where it's, we're going to interview him just to check the box. So we're going to interview him just to check. How many coaches have been put through this, which isn't fair. It is just not fair at all. But for the Denver Broncos to show up, like, they don't care. And then for the Giants to make a decision before Brian Flores has even had a fair shot. I mean, this is all within, 3 years, 4 years?
Pretty much, yeah.
That this all, 4 years. 4 years, and 2 teams have used Brian Flores to just say, yep, check the box.
Yep. I mean, it's really just, I don't want to swear on the show right now. It's just not I could, but whatever. It's just a really, really screwy situation. I really do feel for Brian Flores because, there could be certain guys where if Brian Flores was, if I didn't think he did really the best job with the Miami Dolphins, and he didn't have like as good of a run there as he did, I would probably be the first guy to come out and just say I think that Brian Flores is just being a disgruntled coach right now. I think that he's just I think that he might just be trying to make his case heard. I'd be probably one of those guys to say, oh, he's just trying to, he's trying to say, oh, the league doesn't want me because of this. But listen, Brian Flores is a very good head coach, in my opinion. I think he's I think he's a very good young head coach too, and could really have an impact in, for the next possible 20 years in the league, 20, 30 years. I think he could be one of those guys. I think he should get another shot like that. And I hope the Houston Texans do end up biting on him and getting him as getting him as a coach. I think he could do really good things there. If they don't, I'd love for Bill Belichick to turn around and get him back as our defensive coordinator. Cause let's just be frank. The Patriots defense has some good pieces, but we're old, we're slow, and we need to get some fast guys on this defense. So listen, if Brian Flores needs anywhere to go and no one is willing to pick him up, he is more than welcome back in New England. 100%.
Oh, he definitely deserves another.
And he'd get a warm welcome back in New England. I can tell you that, because when he left after Super Bowl 53, we were sorely missing him when we faced him, and later on down the line.
No, I mean, he definitely deserves a second chance, and I just think it's not fair to guys like him or to anyone else who's been put into a situation like this. I mean, if you're going out for a job, it's like any other job.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be interviewing you just to check your box. They should be interviewing you in all consideration, in all seriousness. And the only way I can see the NFL's solution to this, and it's kind of been something I've been hinting at since we started, not hinting at, but mentioning since we started talking about the whole Denver Broncos situation with the Rooney Rule, is they need to either get rid of the Rooney Rule and just see what happens,
or revise it in some way,
or revise it in some way so that it's not, because it's just hurting more people outside of the whole, because again, just like you were saying about yourself, I'm not an expert in the whole social justice thing going on right now.
Yeah. Or am I,
You know,
nor am I claiming to be. So yeah.
no, I'm not. But it's like, as far as the league goes, if they were to get rid of the Rooney Rule, just see what happens, or like you said, revise it. Because right now it's just hurting minority coaches, and it's not. I want to see more minority coaches. I don't want to just see one. This is one, like you said, White, just the one in Pittsburgh.
It's Tomlin. Yeah.
It's Tomlin.
Yeah.
I want to see more.
I mean, listen, I think rather than have a blanket mandate of saying, oh yeah, you need to check this box, you should be instead trying to, put these guys in situations to where they can actually showcase their talents. I mean, there are plenty of guys that could actually go out there and, do their thing. But when you're, I don't know, it's just like, you think of Eric Bieniemy and, KC. I mean, there are certain guys that could really get a shot if you were to, put them out there and allow them to really showcase their skills. He's one of those guys. So I think that you need to try to get more people in coordinator positions, because the coordinator to coach pipeline is something that is very prominent in the NFL. So I think we need to start really building more of a, kind of a pipeline for it, try to get more people on that track, rather than just, appointing a person that doesn't have the experience yet. Get people experience, do things like that. That's how you build this and really start to make things happen. That's how you got to do it.
I agree, but it's also, Brian Flores showed he knows what he's doing. He did it in Miami. He showed it, and people are still just using it to check a box. He went into Denver. He hadn't shown himself really yet. He did a little bit in New England. They used him to check a box. He said, fine, I'll go to Miami. I'll show myself. He showed himself. And here we are 3 or 4 years later, after he has proven himself to be a fantastic head coach, proven that he can turn franchises around, and people are still just using him to check a box.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I don't like the situation with it. Hopefully he does get a shot. From what I've heard with the Texans, there is some good stuff happening there. So maybe he does get a shot with them. That's going to be a pretty volatile situation for him to walk into, though. And I do wonder, how are teams going to approach him with him, suing the league? I'm not, obviously teams that have, gone out, teams that he is now suing obviously won't be trying to really, get on his line anytime soon. But for teams like the Texans, I feel like one of the questions they're going to ask is, hey, no offense, but with an ongoing lawsuit, how is this going to affect your time with the team? That's something that's going to be just obviously present. And, if Flores is still interested in coaching, which I assume he is, from everything I've heard, he's still interested in coaching. So if he goes out there and says, yeah, man, I will dedicate myself to this team, I'm going to have this lawsuit thing going. But when it comes to winning football games, you saw what I said about Stephen Ross. That's what I'm about. So I think he has a really good shot to do some stuff with them if they were to give him a shot. Obviously, the Vikings job just got taken, but we're gonna have to see what happens there. Obviously, this Brian Flores thing it's a ton to talk about. That's why I wanted to get an episode about it, just because of how big it really is. I don't know. Before we go, I did have some. I did have something planned for this episode today, another topic, but I talked about it in my last episode. But with Sean, I might as well ask him. Obviously, another big change that we saw recently over the past couple of days is that the formerly known as the Washington football team just announced that they have a new name. They are now going to be known as the Washington Commanders. I'm a little hesitant on this name. It sounds a little bit JV for me personally. As of right now, it's something that could grow. But Sean, what do you think about the name?
First thing I thought of was Arena Football League. Like you said, JV. It doesn't strike me as an NFL team name. It strikes me as like that Arena Football League team coming out, or whatever that league was they just had that was on, I think it was in the summer, where they played like indoor games. Like, it strikes me as one of those like knockoff teams, like Washington, or like out of a movie, the Commanders. Like, it doesn't really strike me as an NFL football team name. But, it's an interesting choice. I'm curious to see how they market it, how they brand it. I think right now, just speculating a singular name, it's hard to be like, oh, yeah, that's good, that's bad. Because I'm sure there's people who sat there and said the name Dolphins or the name Patriots is stupid. But,
again, it is all relativity, and it is the newest name in the National Football League. But for me, I think it's just going to take some. For me, it's just going to be more about really trying to get it's going to take some getting used to for me, just because, for my entire life, I've known 32 football teams. I've known 32 names of those football teams. And obviously one has changed multiple times within the past couple of years for various reasons. But now that we have a new football team, it's just like, all right, what is this going to look like? Is football going to be, alive again in DC? Are you going to see people wearing stuff again? So that's something that's going to be up in the air. I don't know what that's going to really end up looking like, but it's been a crazy couple hours. It's been a crazy week for football. I knew as soon as this week started off, I was definitely going to be doing 2 NFL shows. So sorry for anyone who, wanted an athlete interview this week. I have some stuff planned though. So there is some great stuff there. But Sean, unfortunately, man, we are now down to the wire, which means that we're going to do a little wrap through of what we talked about in this episode. It should be pretty easy because we really only had one really main topic, and we'll send you guys off into the weekend. So obviously welcomed back in good friend, resident Dolphins fan and local bum, Sean Howe, to the show. Obviously we were glad to have you on, man. I gotta get you to either Bryant or, I got to come to Bridgewater, do whatever and get you in person. I gotta figure something out there. So however we can make that work, got to do something there. Don't know how our spring breaks work, but hey, we'll make something work. Yeah, exactly. We'll make something happen. But I got to talk with Sean, who is obviously massive Miami fan. Was able to talk to him about the whole Brian Flores situation, about him suing the NFL, the Dolphins, the Broncos, and the Giants over discriminatory hiring practices. My apologies. And, we were able to talk about all the insane stuff going on there, from the Dolphins possibly throwing games to Bill Belichick having, some fat thumbs and, accidentally sending some stupid text messages. Not real. It's clear that he needs to definitely have his phone updated and include the last names of guys in his contact list. Cause he probably just has 5 Brians in his contact list. And the fact that I'm not one of them is kind of sad. So I don't know. I'd love to see my name on that contact list, but one can dream. So we talked about all the consequences there. And we also talked about the situation in Denver with, John Elway and a representative reportedly showing up basically just completely just drunk and out of it to an interview with him. So very serious stuff, but we were able to keep it pretty nice and lighthearted on the show. Obviously for Brian Flores, we hope he gets a head coaching job somewhere. He's a very good head coach. I think that he's a great head coach in the league. And, again, in my opinion, is probably the best of the Bill Belichick coaching tree. I think he should get a job somewhere. But obviously after that, we talked about the whole deal with the Washington Commanders and our thoughts on the names. I gave a more in-depth look at that name, at their name change last night with my show with quarterback Zevi Eckhouse and my co-host Tyler Stringfellow. If you haven't checked that out yet, make sure you go do that now. But if you're not falling down on the wire, make sure you guys go do that. We're available everywhere you guys can find podcasts, whether that be from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and the video stream is obviously on YouTube. And if you want any updates regarding the show, you can find us on our Instagram at down.to-the-wire on Instagram. Again, at down.to-the-wire on the IG. We're going to be starting some stuff up on Twitter, getting more involved with TikTok. Go check out Colorcast. Ton of places to go reach us. We highly recommend you do that. Sean, anything you want to say before you head out?
No, I think you pretty much covered it all.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on, man. I hope to get you on with some more football news. Obviously, we're going to be entering into the dark days of the NFL offseason in a couple weeks. And, with the impending MLB lockout, I said this, I don't know when the season's going to start. Hopefully it starts on time. And, maybe it's only like, 5-6 weeks without one of my two favorite main sports, but maybe it's a little bit longer and I got to get a little creative. So obviously I love having Sean on the show. He's a great guy to get on for this kind of stuff, but unfortunately we are now kind of wrapping up towards the end of it. We hope you guys have a great weekend. And from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
And I'm Sean Howe.
And we hope you guys have a great weekend. Take care. Have a good one and peace out.